My name's Greg Lubel. I work for IBM as a user experience architect. So that means I am involved in researching customer need and translating that into finished products via prototypes and a lot of techniques that we use for ensuring we do a lot of design testing before we go and implement.
Where did you actually start off, and how did that journey happen?
That's a long story. Starting at Ravensbourne, funnily enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did a design degree at Ravensbourne, product design, when it was at Chislehurst, and I did that in 1986. And from there, I took my product design to a company called Ferguson, designing televisions. And I spent a few years there designing TVs, videos, rebadging imported products and building new products, developing remote controls. I decided I wanted to get into computing, and so I didn't really understand the market that well, but I went to work for a company called EDS, who are famous for the mess they made of the passport system for the government, and I stayed there about a couple of years, but I spent most of my time doing green screen programs and servicing them and selling them to car dealers for General Motors, and I didn't really like that, so I went to work for a company called Raytheon, which kept me for a short while. Didn't really use me for any work, and a lot of us ended up being made redundant because their business model was rather poor. So off the back of that, I did a master's at London University in ergonomics, or HCI particularly, and the people who suggested that to me had been working for IBM and were about to go off around the world sailing, lucky them, and they said, would I like to go and apply for their job? So I went to IBM and worked for them for several years as a contractor, and that was great because about the time I joined, a senior IBM person got a fellowship, and that means they get 3 years funded by IBM where they can just go and do blue sky research. And so I was the usability person looking at what the internet means for IBM, and we did a lot of research into that. I remember this was about 92, that was possibly before you were born and probably before
91.
The internet. There you go, you'd be young. And we were looking at an awful lot of stuff around, let me try and remember, there was a car showroom we did, so sort of retail research. We looked at, I've forgotten the word, you'll have to edit this bit out. What's the word? It's recently come up because Johnny Ive's taken Apple away from it. It's making things look realistic. I did a lot of research into realistic versus representational interfaces, and my research was showed that Johnny Ive should have got to Apple a bit earlier because it's more useful for people to get that little bit of a hint as to what the interface is telling you about its capabilities, like a book, rather than shoving it down your throat with leatherette feel and brass corners on books and swishy page turning. You don't need to give people that much to make it actually work. So I knew that in 92. So anyway, moving on, I worked for IBM there, and then when that contract came to an end, I left the Warwick lab, which is where I was, and went to the lab in Hursley continuing as a contractor, and worked there for a few years. And I enjoyed it, but I wanted to do my own thing. So I left, set up my own consultancy down in London, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a tough sell, because trying to get ergonomics and design to companies, small companies whose budget is absolutely valuable to them, trying to get to sell that vision to them was a real difficult call. So in the end, I got a friend of mine at IBM said, "Do you want a full-time job at IBM?" And I went, "Yeah, I give up now." So I went back to IBM, and it was the same as it had been for all the years I'd worked there. It was very development-led. It's a lot of people who who are really intelligent, really passionate about technology and delivering product for big enterprise, and really interesting, challenging place to work. So it's interesting on the intellectual scale, but I never really got to use my design and the marketing skills that I learned when I was running my own consultancy. So when I came back after my time away doing my consultancy, I was really aware that there was a missing piece, which was the understanding customer requirements, driving that through marketing, and delivering user-driven product rather than technology-driven product. And when design thinking came along, which is what Phil has been talking about today, it was a breath of fresh air, to be honest. It's really crystallised in a well thought out way what it is that we need to deliver as a company to our customers. It's end-to-end design thinking, starting with the user need, or there's a variety of users, different users, thinking about the users that you wouldn't normally think about, stepping back from product to problem and looking at it in that way and coming up with innovative, inspirational solutions so that you can be proud of the thing that you're delivering.
Cool. All that was very interesting. I'm really agreeing with what you said about Johnny Ive and his designing style. I think it's really good and really interesting, and what you said about realism, yeah.
Skeuomorphism is the word I couldn't remember.
I imagine that no day at work for you is alike, but like, what during the day do you enjoy the most? Like, what work do you enjoy doing the most?
I've always liked brainstorming. I always like coming up with the wacky ideas and stepping back. I'm not a natural completer finisher. I'm more of a off-the-wall, tangential kind of thinker. So I like to go in a room with a problem and come out with a solution that not that you have to have a solution that nobody's ever thought of before, but something that's different, something that people go, wow, about. I'd never thought of it in that way. That really solves our problem. It's coming up with solutions that are going to give people outcomes that are a different order of magnitude better than they would have expected if they just got an incremental solution.
Cool. Projects lately that you're allowed to elaborate on. Could you talk about them for a bit?
Yeah, well, I started on, when I came back, I started on a product called Message Broker. I won't elaborate too much, only because I don't want to bore you with the technology, but there's a product called MQ, which does asynchronous messaging. You have an application talking to another application, and this one can be off, that one can be on, and you can put the message into the system, and they don't have to be on at the same time. The message will the infrastructure will sort out getting the message from there to there at some point when it's available. And Broker was a way of doing transformation and routing. So you could say the content of this is X, so I know that needs to go to there or there, and so it can allow you to do transformation and routing. You can take a message and mix it up. Your input, your source requires XML, your output requires CSV or some strange healthcare format or something, and you can do that transmogrification in the middle of the system. So you can link legacy applications or new applications to old applications with the flexibility of not having to rewrite your app, your application. You can do that in the system, in the transport. So that's what I used to work on. I've recently moved over to an interesting product that's 40 odd years old. I'm not sure exactly. It's called Kix. I can't recall what it stands for, but it's 40 years old. It makes, I'm not sure if this is a trade secret, it makes a lot of money for IBM. I think it's over $1 billion dollars, and it's still used by pretty much every bank, and they use it for transaction processing. And that's unlike the asynchronous messaging of MQ, which is what I just talked about. It takes a message, very simple messages coming from an ATM, say, or a trader's desk, and gets it quickly and reliably through to an endpoint, does its work and comes straight back. And its strengths are its reliability and its robustness. So you know that if the transaction didn't work, the system will recognise that it didn't work and it will roll everything back as though nothing happened. So you put your money in, you put your card in the ATM, and something goes wrong, you pull it out and you know your account hasn't been debited. You know that trade didn't go through. And if it does work, then you know it's gone through and you know it's worked. So I'm working on that at the moment. Being a product that's so old, it's you can imagine how much opportunity there is to do some modifications to it and make it fit for 21st century.
Phil mentioned holistic design. What does that mean to you in user experience? Does that sort of...
Holistic design, to me, that's an interesting question. I think that means that it's the user's experience, and when I say user, I mean user plural, all the user's experiences in engaging with our products. And it means from their impression of the IBM brand, it means from the impression of the product capability, it means the marketing materials, the information that they need for tasks and concepts and references in the info center, and it means clearly using the product and the interplay between products. So at a portfolio level, it means thinking about the overall task that somebody might need to achieve. So whilst we develop products in our lab, we're under no illusion, certainly recently, now that we've adopted design thinking, that the users that we're catering for, their day-to-day operations may involve 1, 2, 3 products, our products, other people's products. A lot of the enterprises that we work with write their own software. You know, the banks out there have bigger software labs than we do, and they'll write their own software. So it's the ability to develop everything from front-end GUIs, through APIs, through information, through marketing materials, through communications of other sorts like video help, and blogs.
There's a saying that's sort of going around in the design sphere, which is mobile first. How has that changed your design process to before those devices?
Well, I was always very early with computer technology. I had a BBC B when I was late teens, and had a computer pretty much ever since then. But I only recently got a smartphone, so it's changed for me to be sort of behind the curve on that, and I'm really glad I got a smartphone, because I now appreciate what mobile first means. To some extent, I think mobile first means it's a way out of having to develop a complete solution, because I think a complete solution implies that you'll develop a mobile solution, a desktop solution, maybe a Google Glass solution. I don't know. That, you know, it depends on the job you're trying to do and the target market. If you're doing solutions for a consumer product like the ones that Microsoft and Apple do, then clearly they've got a market where tablet, phone, computer are the key delivery mechanisms. In enterprise, it's probable that our market is slightly different. People in KICS, for example, the aging set of users who are the senior system programmers will still be using green screen because it's efficient and it has all capabilities. They won't be using web. They won't be using a mobile phone. The new range of system programmers, the young ones who are coming out of college, rare though they are, will be much more aligned with mobile, and so we're going to have to deliver solutions that are mobile friendly. So we've come up with rather than just be the same application on different platforms, we're looking at perhaps helper programs on mobile. So you have your main interface on desktop or a tablet or something, and on your mobile you might have the info center that allows you reference access to how to achieve a particular task or how to fill in a particular box, what the defaults are, what a good range of values might be for a particular setting. So yeah, that's it.
Cool. That was a really good answer, and I totally agree, like the different target matters. I was there when the show reels were going off, and one guy said, good design is good business. That
was Thomas Watson Jr. in 1950.
Which I really liked. And yes. What does that mean to you? Like, how does that mean to you and IBM?
I think it comes back to what I discovered when I ran my own consultancy. So when I ran my own consultancy, it became apparent very quickly that understanding requirements and fulfilling those requirements would be a shortcut to success because you could demonstrate value to your customer. You could show that you were meeting either their customers or their needs in a positive way, in a more efficient way than if they didn't use design. So good design translates very directly into a better bottom line outcome.
IBM obviously is in hundreds of different countries, and you have to design, I would guess, different for each country. How does IBM approach that problem?
We have people who are contracted to do internationalization, and so we do our documentation and our UI design with bidirectional support and different language support. We have a core set of countries that we will support, including English, French, German, I may get all this wrong, but I think it's simplified, or Mandarin Chinese. I think Russian might be on there. There's a core set of languages, and we'll do for those, and then the national agencies will, if they want a national language for their particular country, I believe they'll fund the translation for it, and then we'll just deliver that. All our languages are supported in separate files from our deliverables, so that you just wire the two together and bing, there's a result.